Good afternoon, Virgo. I need to say something before this reading begins, and I am going to say it plainly, without the frame of spiritual language or the careful distance of a reader describing energy from the outside. I am going to say it the way you say something, when it is simply, privately, undeniably true, and the only honest thing to do is name it. What I see when I look at your energy right now moved me, not in the performative way, not in the way of someone building an emotional atmosphere to make a reading feel significant, in the way of encountering something that you did not expect and that lands before you have had the chance to prepare a response to it, in the way of being genuinely, quietly, unexpectedly undone by the quality of what is in front of you. That is what happened when I tuned into you today, Virgo, and I felt you deserved to know that before anything else was said. I am not going to open with an image. I am going to open with a question that I want you to sit inside of rather than immediately answer. When was the last time someone looked at you, not at your usefulness or your capability or your output or the version of you that serves a function in their life, but at you, the actual interior architecture of who you are, and told you that what they saw was extraordinary, not flattery, not the casual warmth of someone who likes you and is expressing that liking in approximate terms. The specific, clear eyed, I am looking directly at what you actually are kind of seeing. The kind that does not need you to perform anything or produce anything or be anything other than what you are already being. When was the last time that happened? Because I think for many of you, the honest answer is not recently. And I think for some of you, the honest answer is that you cannot immediately identify a time when it happened in the way I am describing. Not because you have not been loved or valued or appreciated, but because the specific quality of being seen at the level of what you actually are, beneath the competence and the service and the showing up for everyone, is rarer than it should be for someone like you. So let me be the one to do it today. Here is what I see. I see a being who came into this life carrying more than the ordinary allotment of sensitivity, more than the standard issue human capacity for feeling, for perceiving, for registering the world at its actual depth, rather than the comfortable surface version that most people agree to operate at for the sake of manageability. You were not given the filter that reduces incoming experience to something more easily processed. You got the full transmission? Everything. The beauty at its most acute, and the pain at its most precise, and the complexity of other people at its most intricate, and the moral weight of situations at its most demanding. All of it arriving at full volume, requiring to be felt and understood and integrated and responded to with the full quality of your attention. And you learn to do that, not without cost, not without the specific kind of exhaustion that belongs to someone who is always operating at a depth of engagement that most people only access occasionally, if at all. But you learned, you developed a capacity for carrying what you carry that is genuinely, not metaphorically, not hyperbolically, extraordinary. That capacity is what I am seeing. That is what moved me. I want to speak about what divine actually means in the context of this reading, because the word can be used carelessly, and I refuse to use it carelessly here. I am not saying you are without struggle or without shadow or above the ordinary difficulties of a human life. I am not saying you exist at some elevation that separates you from the mess and the uncertainty and the unresolved and the imperfect that belong to being alive in a body on this particular planet. What I am saying is something more specific. There is a quality in you that belongs to something larger than the personal, a quality of caring that is not self-generated, that does not come from a calculation about what you will receive in return for the caring. That arrives in you the way water arrives in a spring, from somewhere beneath the visible, from a source you did not create and cannot entirely account for, simply because it is the nature of what you are to produce it. You care about things, about people, about the quality of what exists in the world and the accuracy with which it is understood and the degree to which the people around you are genuinely okay. Not because someone told you to, not because it serves a function, because something in you is constitutionally unable to be in the presence of need without responding to it, of injustice without feeling it, of beauty without being moved by it, of truth without being compelled toward it. That compulsion is what I am calling divine, not the word in its religious sense, in its most literal sense, of something that comes from beyond the merely personal, of something that points to an origin larger than the individual life it is currently housed in. The first image comes through now, and it has a quality I have never encountered before in this series. I see light, but not light as a symbol or a metaphor or a spiritual shorthand for something positive. Actual light in the physical sense, doing what light actually does, moving, reaching, covering distance. Arriving in places that were dark before it got there, without effort or intention, simply because that is the nature of light. It does not decide to illuminate, it illuminates, because illuminating is what it is. And I see this light coming from you, not from your output, not from the things you do or say or produce, from the quality of your presence itself, from the specific frequency of your being. And this light is doing what light does, moving outward, reaching people you may not even know it is reaching, landing in places you have not been and will not be, carried there by the people whose contact with you produced something in them that they then carried forward into their own lives and their own circles. You have changed people, Virgo. Not all of them dramatically, not all of them in ways that were ever named or acknowledged or returned to you as evidence of your effect, but genuinely changed in the specific and permanent way that only real contact with a real presence can change someone. In the way that means the version of them that exists after knowing you is measurably different from the version that existed before. You may never know the full extent of this. You were probably not keeping count, but I am telling you it is real and it is significant and it is, in the fullest sense of the word, a divine contribution to the world you are moving through. I want to speak to something that I feel is important to name in this reading, something that the title gestures toward, but that deserves its full articulation. Being a high vibrational being, being someone who carries the quality of presence I am describing, is not comfortable. And I think you know this. In fact, I think you know it more intimately and more specifically than almost any general spiritual content ever acknowledges. Because the conversation about being a high vibrational person or a divine being or whatever language is used for what I am describing tends to focus on the gifts of it, the depth of feeling, the capacity for love, the sensitivity to beauty, the ability to perceive at levels others cannot access. What it tends to understate is the cost, the specific and ongoing cost of carrying this much sensitivity in a world that is not always calibrated for it. The cost of feeling everything at full volume when others around you feel things at lower volumes and cannot understand why you are affected by things that do not visibly affect them. The cost of caring deeply in environments that reward caring less. The cost of seeing clearly in situations that are organized around the premise of not seeing clearly. The cost of simply being this much of what you are in spaces that were not built for that much, and the loneliness of it. The specific loneliness that belongs to someone who perceives the world at a depth that not many people can meet them at. Not the loneliness of being unloved, the loneliness of being in the room but not quite being in the same room, of having entire interior dimensions that most interactions never touch, of carrying a richness of inner life that has no adequate external mirror much of the time. I see that, and I want you to know that I see it not as a problem to be solved, but as the specific and real price of what you are. That the loneliness is not evidence of something wrong with you. It is evidence of the altitude you are operating at and the relative scarcity of others operating at the same altitude. You are not too much. The rooms have been too small. Tell me in the comments something you have never said out loud. Not a secret in the dramatic sense, something quieter than that, something you know about yourself that you have never found the right moment or the right person to say to. Something about the depth of what you carry or the quality of what you feel or the thing you are here to bring that you have sensed in yourself but that has never been confirmed by someone outside of you. This is the moment to say it, even partially, even approximately, even in language that does not fully capture it. Say it, because being seen is not only about having someone look, it is about allowing yourself to be looked at. And you have been doing a lot of the work of being looked at in ways that never quite reached the right depth. This comment section right now is a space where you can name something real about yourself without it needing to be justified or defended or made palatable. Try it. I see a second image that arrived with an unusual quality of stillness. I see a mountain, not as a symbol of challenge to be overcome, not as something to be climbed with effort and difficulty toward a summit that represents achievement, as a thing that simply is what it is. That has been what it is for longer than anything around it has been what it is. That does not require acknowledgement to maintain its presence. That does not diminish when no one is looking at it. That holds its shape and its altitude and its fundamental quality of mountain, regardless of whether the people in the valley below are paying attention to it or even aware of its existence. This is how I see you. Not as someone becoming something, as someone who already is something, who carries an altitude that is not aspirational but actual, who has the kind of fundamental bedrock, not dependent on external conditions, quality of presence that mountains have, that exists completely, regardless of whether the valley is looking up. And the valley, Virgo, the valley is looking up. It always was. You were just too close to the ground of your own ordinary daily life to feel the altitude you were standing at. I want to speak now about what this reading is asking of you, because a reading like this, one that holds a mirror up to your own divinity, your own altitude, your own extraordinary and somewhat lonely quality of being, is not just an offering, it is also an invitation. And I want to name the invitation clearly. You are being asked to receive this, not perform receiving it, not along with it, while a quieter internal voice runs a parallel commentary about why it is probably exaggerated, or why it does not quite apply, or why the specific version of you that is being described does not match your own experience of yourself on your average Wednesday. Actually receive it the way you receive a true thing, which is with the particular quality of stillness that comes when something lands in the exact place it belongs and the recognition is too accurate to deflect. You are one of the highest beings in the rooms you move through, not in a hierarchy, not in competition with anyone else. In the specific sense that the quality of presence you carry, the depth of feeling you navigate, the care you extend, the integrity you maintain, the light you generate simply by being what you are, operates at a frequency that is genuinely, measurably, sometimes painfully elevated above the average frequency of most human interaction. And the elevation has cost you things. Relationships that could not sustain it, environments that could not hold it, moments of profound and specific loneliness that no amount of being surrounded by people could address, because the specific thing you needed to be met at your own altitude was not available in those rooms. Receive the cost as real, and receive alongside it the worth of what required that cost. The altitude was worth it. You are worth it. The third and final image of this reading is the one that has been present underneath everything else from the very beginning. It is not an image of something external. It is an image of your own chest. And I want to describe what I see there carefully because it is the most intimate thing in this entire reading. Inside, in the center of you, in the place that corresponds to the heart but is not only the heart, there is something that glows. Not brightly, not in the theatrical sense of someone radiating visible light. In the quiet, continuous, deeply ordinary way of something that simply does not go out. It has never gone out. Through everything. Through the loneliness and the being too much for rooms not built for you, and the giving that was not always returned in kind, and the seeing that was not always met with equivalent seeing, and the caring in directions that did not always care back, and the specific and recurring grief of a being this sensitive, moving through a world this complicated. It did not go out, not once. It dimmed sometimes. Of course it dimmed. It would be inhuman not to dim under the conditions you have navigated. But dimming is not extinguishing. And every time the conditions shifted, every time something true arrived, every time a moment of genuine beauty or genuine connection or genuine alignment between what is inside you and what is outside you made itself available. It was there, still lit, still warm, still producing exactly what it has always produced, without your permission and without pause and without any apparent awareness of how extraordinary that particular persistence actually is. That is what moved me to tears. Not your achievements, not your gifts, not any of the things you have done or built or given or survived. That light, that unextinguishable, probably exasperating to maintain, completely characteristic of who you are, light. It is the most divine thing I have ever seen in a human being, and it is yours. It has always been yours. No one gave it to you, and no one can take it from you, and no experience, and no disappointment, and no room that was too small, and no person who could not meet you at your altitude has ever, not once, succeeded in putting it out. You are still lit, Virgo, after everything, still lit, and the world you are moving through, whether it knows it or not, is warmer for it.